You went the fee-for-service model right out of the gate.
We only work 4 days a week and we go from 8 to 2. My big lofty goal was $1 million. So people would laugh at me because, $1 million is a big ask. And then I would tell them that I'm going to do it in only 6 hours a day. Then it was even funnier. We did $1.45 million in collections.
Welcome back to episode number 65 of the Dental Practice Launch Podcast. I'm your host, Shane Simmons. I am the founder and CEO of Crimson Media Dental Marketing, or we help startup practices grow through proven online marketing strategies. And as you all know, we've been following along in this series. We've been talking about startup success and from a variety of different practice types, from your, pediatric, to fee-for-service practices, to PPO, from heavy competition to more rural areas. We're really trying to build this whole scope of startup success. So anybody out there who's considering doing a startup dental practice, you can kind of relate to at least one of these episodes and some of the locations and maybe goals of the practice that you have. So today, I'm really excited to bring on Dr. Chase Williams here. Chase has been an awesome, person that we've been able to work with, and really kind of seeing, his whole vision come to life from concept to now being a year into being open. And one thing that we're going to dive into here as some of the things that you guys want to stick around for and to hear is Chase kind of went the route that a lot of people, I think, want to do but are afraid to do. And that's, he did a startup practice in not only a new location, so it's not like he was born and raised in this town that he's at, but he did it as a fee-for-service practice. So a startup as a fee-for-service practice, and he's had tremendous success in the first year. So we're going to kind of peel back the layers and go through some of the things that have been working and what has been kind of the differentiator for him and allowed him to be successful. So with the intro out the way, Dr. Chase Williams, thank you so much, my friend, for being on here. Let's do it, right?
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Thanks for having me.
So I know there's going to be a lot of questions that people are already just thinking in their head, and hopefully, we'll be able to get through, most of those
Sure.
as well. But let me start here. So, the practice has been open about a year now.
Yep.
You, as I mentioned earlier, opened at a location that you, your wife, you work from. Can you talk a little bit about, going to, you're in Fairhope, Alabama, and when did you decide to move there? And
Sure.
How long after did you decide to open a practice?
Sure. So the long short of it is I graduated in 2018. I worked in rural Minnesota for my first 4.5 years. At first, rural is great, I think, especially when starting out. You learn a lot of skills. You have tons of patience. You have a good opportunity to build some wealth. If you want to open up your own practice, I'm a big fan of that. Before our kids got a little older, it was okay kind of being in the middle of nowhere. But once we started incorporating, sports and music lessons, all this, we were driving an hour just to go do these things. And that got exhausting. And then we're like, well, we don't necessarily love the cold. We're both Midwest kids. I'm from Ohio. My wife's from Missouri. And our dream was always to get by the beach. But we always had that kind of scarcity mindset of, well, it'd be easier just to pick a town where there's no dentist within an hour. And you're going to be busy, you're going to make a ton of money. But we started to realize as our kids got a little older, well, that's not the best life for us. That's not what we want. We're always going to have in the back of our minds, what if we would have just went for it? So we just really fell in love with the Alabama coast and found this awesome little town called Fairhope that we love. It's about 25,000 people. It's growing pretty quick, but we just made the decision. This is our dream location. We're just going to throw the dart on the map, and we're just going to go and kind of reverse engineered what I wanted out of a practice and our ideal life, and just moved forward with it.
That's awesome. And so when did you move there? Like, what year did you move there? And then at what year did you start the startup process for a practice?
Sure. So in my mind, I thought I was going to move there. It was going to be a month. I was going to break ground and, all these wonderful things. So I moved here about 2.5 years ago, and it took a little over a year to get the startup, opened. So I worked as an associate down here for right at a year, and then quickly was able to move full time into my practice. So,
did you always know that you were going to do a startup in, Fairhope where you moved, or were you looking at potentially acquiring a practice from a retiring dentist, or was startup always kind of what you wanted?
Yeah, startup was always what I wanted. I pride myself on doing comprehensive dentistry, so it's really hard when you're taking over for a dentist. When I was in my associateship in this rural town, all these patients had heard one thing, and my treatment philosophy was way different from, the retiring doc that I took over for. So that pass off is really hard, in my opinion. So if you just want to do bread and butter, like 1 crown at a time, do the fillings that come in the door. But if you're looking to do, the higher end cosmetics and all these things, just having every patient as a new patient, and you can blow them away with this awesome new patient experience that they're never going to experience anywhere else. That was my probably biggest deciding factor in opening for a startup. I can set the tone. You can train patients to do anything. I mean, we have patients pay 50% down before they get on our schedule for anything. They pay the other 50% the day of service before they go back. If you are entering into a practice, those things can be really difficult to do, in my opinion. But when you're starting from scratch, once patients want to come see you, they're willing to do what you want. And it just makes life a lot easier and can eliminate a lot of your headaches, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, you're right, because it's a tough situation because dentistry can be, the way that things are done can be, subjective, right? One person can do things one way, somebody another way. It's very much like marketing and kind of the world that we're in too. It's not black and white. And so it's like if you come into practice where somebody's been for 20, 30 years, their patients are used to things a certain way, and you come in doing it a different way, they're going to sometimes maybe ruffle some feathers, and it's,
right.
Going to be more of a headache than potentially what it's worth in many cases. And so I think especially for you and the type of dentistry, that you love to do and provide, that was definitely, as it's proved to be now, but definitely the right decision. And so when you start, this journey of saying, okay, we're going to do a startup practice here in, Fairhope, were there certain things that you were looking for, like as far as, building that you were going to be in, the real estate, kind of walk us through that. And did that take a while, or did you find a space relatively soon?
Yeah, great question. So in my mind, I've always been about the overhead as a big portion of our business model. And, I want to be able to collect a lot, and I also want to be able to trim the fat where I can. In my opinion, this day and age, or at least my location, being on a street corner is not going to make a difference. I'm tucked away on this quiet, sleepy little road. My rent here is $3,000 a month, and everything comparable that I was showed was, 10 to 12. When you're going out over the course of time, that's a lot of money. And patients love that we're off the beaten path. It's quiet. It's easy to get to because everyone has Google, as we know, you throw it in Google Maps and it takes you wherever you need to go. So that was a big factor for me. But it did take a little while to find the right fit. I'm a small office. We only have 5 op. It's just me. I don't have plans on ever having an associate or expanding. Like my life simple. I love my family time. So I just want to create this nice little thing that I have going and ride that off into the sunset.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important, I think, too, for people who are getting into practice ownership in general, is like, how does the practice fit into the life that you want? I think sometimes people get into this, headspace of, we always have to be growing, expanding, ops or expanding locations or hiring associates. And for some people, that's what they want to do, and that's great. But I think everybody needs to take time to reflect on, like, what do you want? It's not like, what do you think, society expects of you, but it's like, what's the lifestyle? And like in your case, it's like, I want to have a, successful practice in the community that I love. I could spend time with my family, do the type of dentistry I love. And it's like, I don't need to try to hire 2 associates over the next 3-4 years.
Sure.
That is like key right there. And so I think that feeds into the second part, which we teased out a little bit earlier, which is you went the fee-for-service model right out of the gate, which is just not something you hear a lot of. And of course, we work with a lot of startups, and there's, I would say 90% of them, when we're talking before, we're just like meeting, it's like, are you going to be a network within the insurances? I always ask that question, and it's always the same answer 90% of the time. We're going to start with, but eventually I want to be fee for service. It's always the case. You went right out the gate. You went fee for service. Why? First off, I guess is the first question. Why did you go that route? Secondly, did you get any pushback from anybody on wanting to go that route as well?
Yeah, so we definitely I personally got a ton of pushback from friends. I had one of my good friends from Minnesota. She was in a practice and they dropped insurance and just exploded. So I've kind of been stealing some of their methods, and it's worked out phenomenally for us. That gave me definitely a little extra bit of confidence making that decision. But for me, the big thing with fee-for-service industry is, one, I want to get paid what I deserve. I mean, when people tell me Dr. Chase, why don't you take insurance? I go, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I am a carpenter. I was like, okay, well, if the company came to you and said, you're going to work the same, you're going to provide the same quality, but I'm only going to pay you 60 cents on the dollar, are you going to do that? No. So, I think if you have the confidence that your work is worth the money, the patients will show up. We have a significant amount of patients that are seeing us just because we're fee for service. If you can go fee for service, it shows patients that you are confident enough to kick the insurance model. There must be something that allows you to do this, to be different from everyone else. And at the end of the day, I like my family time. I don't want to be on the phone. I don't want to pay people to be on the phone when insurance is trying to dictate treatment. I'm a principled person. We don't file claims. We don't do anything. When a patient calls, we say, will you file my claim? Will you do this? I say, no, we'll give you the notes. We'll give you the x-rays, and you can have fun doing all of those things. Good luck. And we lose patients every day because of that. And, our staff, we're trained to say, do you take Blue Cross Blue Shield? We don't. Is that the most important thing for your dental care? And if they say yes, okay, great. Well, we have Dr. X and Dr. Y. Dr. Chase is good friends with. They provide great dentistry. You can call them. But it's a good leading question, as people are like, why is he so okay with kicking me down the road? It's just an interesting psychology, I think, behind it all.
Yeah. Well, and two, I think the confidence, you have going that route as well. I mean, did any of it feed into the fact that, yes, it's like you're not going to be paying $10,000 or $12,000 a month in rent, from the beginning. Like, you went a route where, you've got a very affordable rent. Like, did any of that play into it? Because knowing how my mind works, it's like I make calculated decisions based on, what it's why I'm in the house that we're in today. It's like, we got locked in when everything was so cheap still before real estate exploded. The interest rates were ridiculous. And it's like, we could upgrade, but we're like, yeah, but, do we want to? So did any of that go into it? Or just from the gate, you're like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it the way that I want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty much under, like I told my wife, I was like, I'm doing this fee for service thing. If we can't eat, then we'll cross that bridge and we'll have to figure something out. I probably would have worked as an associate and built up and tried to get along, but luckily it's worked out fine. But knowing I was going to go fee for service and it was going to take longer to grow, we wouldn't just have that, growth of being in a network provider, feeding that system. It definitely led me to wanting to choose an office that was going to have cheaper rent to be able to potentially ride out that first year or two. A lot of our decisions were made. But on the same hand, my accountant said I was the most risk tolerant dentist he's ever seen. I mean, I bought so much I invested over like $300,000 of my own money. We spent ourselves down to $10,000 before we opened up. I mean, it was kind of do or die because I wanted the mill, I wanted the 3D printers, I wanted the big field of view CBCT. So I wasn't going to open it 3/4 of the way. Money runs out really fast when you're doing a startup, but my philosophy was like, I need to have all the things in place to offer the practice that I want. And, we opened up and went for it, and it's worked out. So not that that's advisable, but.
Well, and sometimes, it's kind of like you gotta, if you're already thinking about plan B before you even try to implement your plan A, it's like you've already kind of set yourself up for failure in many ways. And, you got to make the calculations like you did. And you had, a backup that you could go to with associateship and all of that. But I think the real key there is knowing what your differentiators were going to be right out the gate, because you're like, if we go this route, it's like we need to have the best technology, right? It's like the type of dentistry we want to do, we've got to come out the gates and be able to highlight ourselves as that differentiator, in this community. And so that really is leads us to, before you opened, you started to create a buzz in the community. And of course, we know this because, several months before you even opened, we started running ads, on social media in the community, and really kind of just building up this anticipation of this kind of brand new type of dental experience that was coming to the area. What was it like when, you first started getting, like ads out there where people are seeing you, recognizing you, and when you started seeing the community reacting and actually, saying they wanted to become patients before your doors even opened? What was that feeling like? And does that help of going into that opening timeline where you're like, okay, well, at least I know we're going to have patients here?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So it was interesting because everyone I met when y'all started pushing the Facebook ads, especially out, I get to talk, what do you do? And I'd be like, oh, I'm a dentist, I'm opening up. They're like, I thought you looked familiar. I've seen your Facebook ad like 55 times on my story, or whatever it was. So it was, I would honestly say probably half the people I meet in this county have seen a Facebook ad or something, or we've popped up on Hulu while they're watching TV. It's amazing what y'all do and the reach you get out. But it gave us a ton of confidence because we had, I can't remember the exact number, 150, 200 patients on our call list. And you all did such a good job creating such a good buzz about our practice. And our message was really, we're this small office, we're going to do things differently. It's going to be this personalized care. We're going to take the time that we need. We have all this cool technology. So we had a lot of patients, and it wasn't just young patients. We had a lot of older patients, and those older demographics that saw them was like, okay, well, no one likes the dentist. So what are you doing so different? Like, what's this buzz about doing dentistry differently? And then, as our little tagline was old school hospitality, new school dentistry. So you kind of get, everyone wants a VIP experience. Everyone wants to have the best technology. So marrying those things together, I think, and getting that message out was hugely important for us.
And even like you put so much thought into that portion too of the patient experience, because even with your brand, like I know, like the logo, it kind of looks like an old school sign, that you would see, out in town in the, I don't know, the 1940s or something, like, can you talk, and we'll put something over here. We'll have your logo throughout this episode. Cool. So if y'all are listening to this, go over to the YouTube page so you can watch it and see, but talk a little bit about, that and wanting to kind of just give that feel even from the brand and the logo itself.
Yeah, so our whole thing was marrying the kind of old school hospitality, because the practice I took over when I was in Minnesota, that doctor had been there for 30 years. I walked into this seasoned team where everyone had been there from 16 to 35 years, and it was just a well-oiled machine, and it was beautiful to watch because that doctor took care of all his employees. They never left, never had turnover, and it was so powerful because it's this great little family that everyone got along well, and in working that long together, everything was just so smooth. But then I started, talking to a lot of friends, and like we talked earlier, or you had touched on, everyone wants to own 3 practices, everyone wants to have associates, it seems like. And when I moved down here, I worked at a couple of places like that, and it just wasn't for me. So I was like, nope, we're getting back to the old school dentistry where I'm going to see, mom, and then they're going to have a baby, and I'm going to watch that baby grow up and take care of the teeth. And then, maybe the next one, while they're a baby, and I'll retire, whatever. So I wanted to be me just here for the long haul and really make sure that we're able to take care of people in a very comfortable environment. We have the weighted blankets, we have the TVs in the ceiling, Beats headphones, whole slew of fancy drinks, coffees, everything in the waiting room. Our vibe is just very nice and chill and relaxed. For all the hygiene rooms, it has 12 o'clock delivery. So all you see is that little chair. All my all my team members have lights or loops or whatever they want. So we don't have to have an overhead light. So we're just trying to really take away the old school scary dental experience, deliver this awesome care. And we're also spending 2 hours with every single new patient, whether it's a kid or an adult. This is what the beauty is of not being limited to and having to play the games of insurance. We take a full large field of view CBCT. We do airway evaluations. We're doing 3D scans on every single patient, panos, bite wings. So we're getting this huge collection of data. And I spend anywhere from between 20 minutes and 30 minutes with every single new patient. And they're here for 2 hours. My hygienist is doing most of that work, full ortho series of photos. And they don't feel rushed. And that's one of our big things. And when I get behind, and I'm in an operative and 20 minutes, 30 minutes late, I would just tell the patient, I'm so sorry. There's just one of me. I was with them in that exam. And most of them are totally understandable. They're like, you spent so much time with me. I would want someone else to have that experience as well. So not only like the atmosphere and everything that you're delivering, but actually spending the time with patients, I would say is the biggest thing that can differentiate yourself. And that's probably the biggest comment that we hear is, I felt heard, you listened to me, and I did not feel rushed at all. And
it's like, history repeats itself is what I always say. And it's like, we've, gotten ourselves as a society where everything's so kind of like, it's technology driven from, even the patient communication, like now there's AI, patient communication out there and all of this. And those are great, but there's something beautiful that people are attracted to about just that old school kind of customer service, right? Where you get to know the person, they take the time to make sure that you're, like you said, feeling heard. It's just that alone, while it seems so simple, can be a differentiator for a dental practice today. Because think about everything you do in your life, how automated is everything today. It's corporate, so quick and in and out and time. Sometimes people want to develop that relationship, that connection, and feel heard. And again, it all ties in to your brand and what you wanted to do. So now let's get to the fun part here, because let's talk about your first year, as you've come up on your first year here being open as a fee-for-service startup practice. What, if you don't mind sharing, what was your kind of goal as far as maybe production for the practice in the first year? Did you say okay, this is a goal and it's realistic, I think we can do it, and kind of shooting for the stars even a little bit, but I can do this? And then what was the actual numbers? And let's go through it.
Yeah, we could share that. So mine was kind of twofold. One was, when I was working in Minnesota, it was a very busy, very successful practice in the past. And, I took it from, I think, $800,000 before I entered it. And by year 5 that I left, just my chairs, no hygiene, was like 1.6 million. But I was working, 8-hour days, 4 days a week. I mean, to a dentist, that could be a long schedule. But one of the big things that we did when we opened this practice, we only work 4 days a week and we go from 8 to 2. So my big thing is more about efficiency than spending a bunch of time here. So let's get in, let's work hard and get out. My big lofty goal was $1 million. So people would laugh at me because, $1 million is a big ask. And then I would tell them that I'm going to do it in only 6 hours a day. Then it was even funnier. It was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Good luck. So we finished our first from September 12th to September 12th. We did $1.45 million in collections. We have 100% collection rate because we don't let people come back without paying. And so just train patients to do that. Your life will be so much more simple. We're never chasing down money. And then year to date, we're at 1.319 million in collections as of today. So
what was when you finally, the reality hit you? You probably knew okay, we're on track. We're going to beat the goal. But when you finally saw those numbers, what was that feeling? What was that reaction? And I'm sure even your wife, because you both as together, like you said, dwindled down
Yeah.
your personal savings too.
Yeah.
So just what was the feeling? And that's got to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a great feeling. I felt accomplished, and I always tell everyone, you have to have a good team around you. So I'm super proud of the team that we've built. I pay everyone really well. I pay everyone for 8 hours of work because I want everyone to have a good life that works for me. So, I pay everyone for 8 hours. If I take a week off, they all get paid. So last year we had everyone had 4 paid weeks off. This year we're going to try to get to 6 weeks paid off. So not only do I want to have a good life, I want all my employees to have a good life too. And we have a great bonus system. So we basically, the more money the practice generates in a month, the more their bonus will be. It really creates a lot of team unity. So I'm a big fan of that. And whether it's front desk or hygiene, everyone gets that bonus split the same. But yeah, just very proud of my team. It's been really fun to kind of prove people wrong as well. that said, that's crazy. If you're going to go fee for service, you got to at least submit claims and do this X, Y, Z. And I was like, I don't think so. I think if we just do it this way, we can make it work. So yeah, it's just fun. Yeah. And life's great. I mean, it's fun to be making good money. Also, I'm huge into CE and reinvesting. I mean, a lot of the profits we've made, I've already reinvested right back into the practice. We're constantly buying new tech. So just want to keep the ball rolling.
Well, that's one heck of an accomplishment. And yeah, your team, everybody should be super proud. And the other thing that you said there, I think is a key for those listening is, we've been talking about up to this point, excuse me, differentiators for your patients and like how you provide them a different experience and how you can, be a fee for service practice and not submit claims and do all these things because you are different and the experience is different. But what Chase said there about his team, you got to be different in this market too, because you're competing with other practices to hire, the assistant, the hygienist, a great front desk manager. So if Chase is as, these 8 to 2, 4 days a week type hours, but he's not trying to, cut costs and cut their pay by not paying them 8 hours worth of work, he's still doing that. Who's gonna, in most cases want to leave that? Like there's bonus systems in place for performance, great work-life balance for the team members too. I mean, how big do you think that is just from like maybe even previous experience in dentistry? Because, you got to think you can't do it alone. You got to have a great team. And so how do you separate, yourself from everybody else with that too?
Yeah, it's super important. If I'm here by myself, I'm not producing anything because I can't find a cotton roll. So, it's one of those things like you are only as good as your team. I found awesome team members. I poached a couple people, but these are people that they're never going to go anywhere else. They tell me all the time, that they're grateful and thankful and that I've ruined any other office they'd ever have to potentially work at. So they're like, please don't die because we like it here. This is a career for people. A lot of dentists, I've seen it working in that office in Minnesota. It got bought by a DSO and I was just an employee for the DSO. They wanted, if a patient didn't show up, they wanted the assistants to clock out. It's like, this is someone's wage they're trying to raise a family on and succeed in life. And I mean, I just go by that golden rule, like treat others like you'd want to be treated. If that was my sister, I'd think it's ridiculous if someone asked them to clock out or wasn't going to pay them their worth. Or if the doctor takes off a week, how are they expected to go without a week without pay? So I just really try to treat people how I'd want to be treated, my family would be treated, and just kind of just take care of people and they'll take care of you. And with a good bonus structure, there is no downtime. If we have a lull, they are on the phones, they are collecting, they are doing all the little things that you're going to be mad that they're not doing. But if you're just paying someone $20 an hour and there's no incentive to work harder to make more money, just in human nature, I'm just a big believer. You might find that very rare exception every once in a while in someone, but most people are just going to start to coast if there's no further incentive structure for them. So
Yeah. You've got to have, an incentive there, something to keep people motivated, driven. I 100% agree with that. And, with going through and smashing that goal for the year, having the great team, we've got to definitely talk about some of from the marketing side, what has been such a big driver, because we've talked about patient experience and all of that is a huge piece too, and builds referrals and whatnot. But as we always talk about, it's like the external marketing, which is so important for startup practice, should ultimately build the internal marketing too, right? And one of the things that you've done such a good job about is really kind of finding this niche in dentistry of serving a population base that is primed and ready to be served, and that really goes along with like holistic dentistry. And I feel, I don't know the numbers or exactly, but I could tell you that patient base is growing every year, right? More people are becoming aware of their whole health and how everything with the mouth impacts everything, right? And so that's a growing population base, and in my opinion, dentistry isn't keeping up in that growth.
I agree.
But you've been investing so much time, energy, money, resources into learning the different avenues of holistic dentistry. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that served you in your practice in this first year, and what that feedback has been like from that patient base?
Sure. Yeah, I think with the holistic dentistry, it really goes kind of two ways. You have your kind of traditional holistic dentistry, looking for root causes of issues, things like that. And then the other side, for me personally, one of my biggest passions is growth and development for children. So I've been doing frenectomies. I started with infants. My oldest son was tongue-tied as a baby, trying to breastfeed, and had difficulty. It wasn't until a release was done, kind of opened my eyes to this whole thing I never even heard about in dental school. So that's kind of led me on this whole growth and development, airway, sleep disrupted breathing for children. So trying to get these kids developing even before traditional ortho is going to look at them at 7 or 8 years old at the earliest. We're starting to look at kids and put them in appliances at 3-4 years old to really help facilitate. So that's one thing. I have 3 kids. I'm very passionate about health, fitness, doing all these little things to make our family healthier and have these kids succeed. Then the other side is your more traditional holistic dentistry. So one of the big things when you're talking about external marketing, or what we have done, I've gotten in front of a lot of functional med doctors, MDs, chiropractors, all these patients. A lot of people have a lot of disease, a lot of inflammatory disease, and they're not looking at the mouth at all. So I work with 2 functional med doctors about an hour north of us, and they send patients all the time. And it's really we're taking that CBCT just to make sure there's no abscesses on their teeth. That's a huge thing. Make sure they don't have periodontal disease. So people look at holistic dentistry and think that, hazmat suits and removing amalgams. And there are people that go that deep into it. But it's really not that crazy. We're really just taking our time and trying to dial things back. We've had so many crazy success stories of people feeling, lack of a better term, like crap for years and years. Well, they had never gone to a dentist or never had a CBCT done, and these got 2 or 3 huge infections that are into the sinus. Well, who's going to take those out? Who gets to take those out and do bone grafts? Who gets to charge for the CBCT? And then that patient comes back a month later saying, I feel so much better. All these things are finally making sense. I have more energy, XYZ. And at the end of the day, you don't have a huge abscess in your jaw. Your body's probably going to feel better and behave better. So those patients are huge advocates to at least get screened, at least get checked out. So that's been a big factor, is working with all these other doctors. We have a slew of doctors that we treat. And as soon as they say, hey, do you recommend a dentist? So every week we have multiple patients that are referred by the doctors that we see. So that's very powerful. If you can see doctors of any sort or kind, give them a VIP experience, because they are in healthcare. Even if it's not their field, they know if you are passionate, they know if you're well educated, and they know if you are spending the time that's needed to help and diagnose what they have going on.
Most definitely. And, it's such a life-changing type, because I know that's just one avenue, and you do a lot of beautiful cosmetic and restorative work too, but it's like those literally life-changing type of procedures and dental services you provide, think about then the like the review that you get, when someone leaves a review and can talk about, hey, I was feeling like garbage for years, I couldn't figure it out, and finally I got an answer, and it's I feel so much better. Like, that is so powerful, because everybody goes and looks at reviews now and wants to check out research, especially at a dental practice. And so the more impact you're having on someone's life, the more impact that's going to have on your practice and, pay dividends. And so that even leads us to, where, like, from the marketing end and paid advertising, everybody is always trying to compete, I feel like, for, the same patients. And it's very, it's, if you don't have those unique things that you can, talk about you and your approach to your business, whatever the case is, it's you're just another practice. But with Dr. Williams here, he's able to acquire, patients like this for a few $100s, and they come and are great patients, get, great life-changing treatment, refer other patients. The return on investment is also, just a win-win there too. So I guess, has that been something that you have felt has also led to, such an impactful first year, is being able to not be competing with, everybody else for kind of the same small subset of patients?
100%. So, I mean, we offer a lot of the tech, and when I was opening, I thought the tech was going to be as equal draw as our kind of holistic approach. Spending all this time giving people such a thorough exam. Really, it's like 80-20. We have people that get in here and then they're like, oh, this is really cool. We got 3D printers and a mill and all these things, and we'll watch them make a crown or make a night guard, and people think that's cool, but it's not what's bringing people in mass. It's the holistic side, and really just taking time to let people be heard. Giving our patients autonomy is one of the big things. I want autonomy when I'm being treated with that, whatever my healthcare is. So, if a patient doesn't want fluoride, cool, that's awesome. We have a ton of fluoride alternatives right now. And my big thing is we like to get to the root causes of things. So, mouth breathing, we do saliva testing. There's all these things that if we want to get to the root cause, you're not going to be able to in a 5-minute exam when you're hopping between 3 chairs. You have to be able to take the time with these patients, and patients understand that it's going to be more expensive to have this kind of care. They understand that I'm not hopping from chair to chair to chair to chair. We only actively treat one patient at a time. So I never have 2 crowns back, in 2 separate chairs. We might have something that's completely assistant driven, but when I sit down, I'm with that patient, and that's it. When I'm doing the work, and patients feel that. And one thing to echo on the review, if you can get people to leave you good reviews, and we don't at this point, we don't really ask. We just send out with our dental software program, whatever. Like, we love if you left us a review, something really simple. One of the things we keep hearing from patients is, I look through your reviews, and most of your reviews are like a wall of text. It's not good dental experience, highly recommend. We do get those every once in a while, but for every one of those, we probably have 10 that are at least a paragraph. We have some that are like paragraphs long of why they enjoyed our experience so much. And that's been very powerful, because I ask every patient, how'd you hear about us? What made you choose, us? And the reviews is crazy. So a lot of it's, I saw you on Facebook, and I started looking at your reviews. It's over and over. That's been the story.
It's absolutely, with reviews, it's about, quality, not quantity. Like, people get so hung up with, oh, my competitor has 700 reviews, but if you look at those reviews, are they actually, like you said, in-depth explanations of what their experience was like, or are they just blank 5 stars or like 2 or 3 words, versus 100 reviews, but they're very well thought out and explain the experience. It's such a thing I think people get hung up on too much, is the number, and it's great. The more you can get, the better you feel, certainly. Sure. But everybody's got to start somewhere, and it's all about what those reviews say and the impact that they have. That's what the average person is looking for, right? So I'm glad you brought that up. And as we kind of wind down here, there's a couple things I got to hit on. And I told Chase before we recorded this, I said, we usually try to keep these 30 minutes. I knew this one would not be in that because there's just too much here that I had to get to. So thank you, everybody who's sticking around listening, and thank you, Chase. But, the one thing that I think is a great system you've put in place and the team's put in place is, because those first appointments are so thorough, you mentioned all the different things that you all are doing and the time you're investing in it, it's an investment, right, for the patient up front, but that's where you've made it so beneficial for like your in-house membership plan. Can you touch on that just a little bit and how that's been so big and kind absolutely. Of the growth?
Yeah, and everyone, when I talk to other docs, they're like, "Oh, holistic, you're probably like 4 times expensive. That's why you're making all this money." No, my fees are at the 75th percentile. So we have our fees at the 90th percentile. Our membership gives us 20% off. 99% of our patients are in our membership, so it brings us right back down to the 75th or 90 to whatever. But once they have their membership, they're at the 75th. So we are charging our area's average for our dentistry. We're just collecting that full fee and not taking the insurance hit. So I grew up with not a lot, especially in the first half of my life. So we don't want to price people out. So one of my big priding factors is that we offer great holistic care for an affordable price. So we charge $495 for the year. That includes 2 cleanings. That includes your periodic, your comprehensive exam, limited exam throughout the year, airway screening, orthodontic screening. So all these things. And that's with a 2-hour comprehensive exam. So, and then for kids, we do, it's like $345 or $355, something like that. So it just makes it really simple. And I tell most patients that CBCT, most offices are going to charge you $400 to $500 just for that. You're getting 2 cleanings, all this other stuff, and you need that CBCT, in my opinion, to properly diagnose in this day and age. We find so many things on that CBCT when someone's like, I just had a pano and it showed nothing, and it's like 3 abscesses clear as day. So the membership has been huge, and it's reoccurring. Patients don't have to think about it. We have an option; they pay that up front, and that covers them for the year, or they can roll it in. Monthly payments, I think it tacks on like 20% of the cost to spread it out over the year for monthly payments. But huge fan of memberships. Just tell patients it doesn't limit your care. There's no restrictions. There's no limits on it. And at the end of the day, why these insurances, they're only in business to make money. They're not spreading joy around the world. These are corporate suits taking patients' money and giving less to the dentist. And somehow they're getting $20 million a year bonuses, the CEOs are. And they have these huge buildings, and it's just so
it's
silly.
It's dental schools now, which is
wild. Yeah, it's so corrupt and it's so messed up, and we're really shortchanging ourselves. And there's a way to do it affordably and fair, and still have a great life, and still make a great income, and not have to be stressed out, for sure.
Beautiful. Okay, final question here. I know everybody listening to this, there's been so many valuable takeaways that you can, picture, putting this into your future practice if you're purchasing a practice, or, if you already have a practice, these are things to start thinking about as well. But for those specifically, because it's a big part of our audience who are considering doing a startup, right? That they're really leaning towards that route, and maybe specifically those who are wanting to go the fee-for-service route, because again, it's about 90% of the people I talk to, that's eventually where they want to get anyway. What is, just kind of in summary, a big 1-2 things of advice that you would go back and tell them after, doing this for a year and collecting over 1.4 million in that first year? What's some advice you would give there?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is you have to have confidence, and you have to go all in. I think, like you touched on earlier, if in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I have this plan B, but you're holding it really close. Like, I want to put one foot in and 1 foot out. I mean, you have to be all in. You have to be all in with your patients. You have to be all in with the community. You have to make connections. You're going to have to go out and meet people. You're going to have to go do those little things. Luckily, I haven't had to do too much of that. It's kind of just exploded, but But I was planning on, I was like, all right, I'm going to be active on the board. You know, I was going to go to every board meeting. I had all these things lined up where if we didn't have a good patient base, I was going to start, you know, knocking doors and hitting pavement to bring people in. So I think you need to go in it, and you have to have a niche. You have to have something that's going to separate yourself, whether it's the holistic, whether it's the technology, whether you're the best cosmetic dentist. And then you have to get that message out to people. No one's just going to randomly find you when you're starting out, especially just by happenstance. And I see it all the time in some dental startup forums. It's like, sitting here twiddling my thumbs, and it's, you got to have, you know, someone like Shane that's going to give you great marketing and get your message out in front of people. Having that big buzz before we opened was crucial, because once we started that, then that created excitement, and those people told their friends and their family. So you have to have something big, something to start with. It'd be really hard if I would have opened the door, then contacted Shane, versus, you know, the months of preparation, getting the website open and ready to roll. Because you got to open that door ready to deliver the service that you want to deliver in the long term. It's hard. I think it'd be really hard to build it up over time. So my advice would be save up, work your associateship, whatever you need to do to save up the wealth and so you're financially stable enough to just go in all at once and do it right from the beginning.
Awesome. Yeah, fantastic advice. And for those listening, we'll have this posted in the show notes down below, but we'll definitely have your Chase's practice, Tooth & Co. They'll website URL be down there, so you can kind of check out that practice. It's a beautiful space, great team. You can really kind of see just the personality of the people, right there on the website, which is, I think, such a cool thing too. But definitely go check them out on Instagram. And I've got the handle here. It's tooth.and.company. But again, we'll have the link down here below too. Give them a follow. Check out what they're doing. And man, Chase, I just appreciate you hopping on here. Congrats on everything. And I know that, you online in different, dental communities try to give back as much as you can and give advice. And I think that's really cool because, sometimes in dentistry, we see people and they kind of get in their little silos and don't want to maybe pay it forward, to others, yep. But you are the exact opposite. You love to give back and help. And doing this interview was massive. And I know it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much, man, for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Shane. Appreciate it, man.